الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماله عادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم ومنكره فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على أن لا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب بالتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. صلوات عليك. I'd like to first begin by extending Mubarak to all of you on this very happy occasion in the history of Shia Islam, on the birth anniversary of the 11th Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam. Keeping also in mind that he is the father of our present Imam, so tabrikat goes to, especially to him. The ayat that I recited, I'll talk about the ayat later on, but it's an ayat which talks about the attitude of maintaining justice and fairness when we deal with others. When we look at the concept of Imamat in Islam, we have to realize that in Shia Islam, when it comes to the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, we believe that it is expected of us to show absolute obedience to them. Just as the Prophet, when he says something, there is no issue of questioning his authority. And the same way we believe about the Imams. When they say this is halal and permissible, that is halal and permissible. I cannot say, well, I want to go and do even beyond that. Or when they say this is haram, that is the end of the story. We cannot say that I am a true Shia by going with what I like or what I dislike. We have to go with the teachings of the Quran, the Prophet, and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wassalam. In the Quran itself, when Allah says to the mu'mineen, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u ar-rasul wa ulil amri minkum. O you who believe, obey Allah. There's no conditions there. And obey the messenger and those who are in authority among you. Means those who have been given the authority of wilayat among you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this issue of ati'u, ita'at, absolute obedience is part of our belief system. And that is why, for example, when he talks about his two grandsons, he says they are imams and leaders. You have to follow them. In qama aw qa'ada. Doesn't matter whether they stand up and fight against the enemy or sit down and make peace with the enemies. You cannot say, oh, how come you are making peace with the enemy? If the Imam does that, we don't have no say there. We have to just obey what they are saying or what they are asking us to do. When we look at the situation of the Muslim world at the moment, even my second khutbah was, on this theme of about the relationship of the Muslims within, not interfaith, rather intra-faith. And this question comes up, we live at a time when we see sectarianism is there everywhere. Not only on the level of discussions and debates and books and pamphlets, it's reaching to the level of violence. Whether you look at the situation in Pakistan or in Afghanistan, especially with the Taliban, and especially even now in Iraq, for example. And when we look at the situation, we have to realize that yes, these are difficult times for us. But what is our responsibility? What should be our response and reaction to that? This is also imtihan and ibtila. Is Shia Islam asking us to go down to the level of the enemies? Or are the Imams expecting us to maintain our moral and ethical superiority over them? Even though it might be very difficult. And this is where something we have to, look at it, that we cannot, formulate our ideas and our reaction to these kinds of events on the basis of our own emotions. No. We have to see what is our madhab saying. What do our Imams say? And what is the Prophet saying? And what is the Quran is saying? It's interesting to see in the last 2 years, even our Maraja have been asked about this issue. And they have responded in different wordings, different styles, but the message of all of them is same. And I would like to share, 2 of them and conclude with the hadith used by one of them, which comes from Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salatu wassalam. But before even I go to those 2 marajas whose response I would like to share in this evening, some definitions need clarity. Only then we will be able to understand the background of those fatwas. First of all, Muslim. It should be very simple. How do we define a Muslim? Anyone who says Shahadatain. Whoever says La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, by definition that person is a Muslim. And when we say that this person says Shahadatain, that person becomes a Muslim. And what does it mean? It means now he is muhtaram. The word muhtaram comes from the word hurmat. The word haram has opposite meanings, positive and negative. We say, pigs are haram for us. And then we say masjid al-haram. You realize they come from the same source, but the meanings are completely different. And when we talk about a human being, the Sharia says when a Muslim says the Shahadatain, he is muhtaram. What does the word muhtaram mean? Muhtaram means sacrosanct. What does that mean? That means that the life of a Muslim, honor of a Muslim, and property of a Muslim is now muhtaram. You are not allowed to violate the life of a Muslim, the honor of a Muslim, or a property of a Muslim. They become haram for you to do that. And when and the implication is that anyone who says a Shahadatain, he is a Muslim in this dunya. And all the rules of the Sharia will apply for that individual, for or against. For example, the issue of taharat. Anyone who says the Shahadatain, that person is considered to be pak. They have become Muslim. Or for example, the issue of, marriage. Marriage would be allowed among Muslims. Or when we look at the issue of even the eligibility for charity. If you look at the ayat from Surah Hujurat, you will see some Bedouins who were suffering from famine in their area. They are not yet Muslim. They were told there is somebody in Medina by the name of Muhammad, is a new religion, and they have the system of zakat. You are hungry, why don't you go there and become Muslim? So when they went to Medina and they came to the Prophet and they said, Amanna. O Muhammad, we have Iman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayat saying, قالت العراب آمنا. O Muhammad, these Bedouins are saying Amanna. Say to them, you don't have Iman. Because Iman comes from inside. قولوا أسلمنا. The most that you can say, أسلمنا. We have accepted Islam. لما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم, because Iman has not yet entered into your hearts. So at least that Islam gives them. So the Prophet was told, that said to them, don't say Amanna, don't claim to have, Iman and be mu'min. No, say, we'll accept you as a Muslim, and now you are eligible for zakat, we'll give it to you. And so this is where we see that, the rules will, all the rules of Islam will apply there. There is zabiha becomes halal for us. Even the collective duty, wajib kifai, would apply to them. If they die, it is wajib on the community to wash their body, give kafan and bury them. And in their own families, now since they are Muslims, they even have right to inherit from one another. This is as far as the definition of a Muslim and the implication of Muslim is concerned. And so the question comes up, what about them who do not believe in the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt? And this is where we have to realize that belief in the wilayat and imamat of the Ahlul Bayt is the condition for Iman, not a condition for Islam. You cannot say somebody who doesn't believe in the Ahlul Bayt is not a Muslim. No. For Islam, you just need those two shahadatain. It is for Iman that you need the wilayat of Ahlul Bayt. And so when a Muslim, after saying La ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Rasulullah, and then he says, Ashhadu anna aliyan waliyullah wa khalifatuhu bila fasil, when he says that, then he becomes a mu'min. He becomes a Shia. And what are the implications? All the rules which apply on a Muslim would now also, of course, apply on that mu'min, plus one more thing. Islam is for this dunya. Iman will give you the salvation in the hereafter. That is the main difference between Iman and Islam. Then we come to a third question here. What about some of those who say the kalimatain? They say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, salawat. But do not our ulama, our fuqaha, our mujtahideen consider some groups, even those who use the kalamatain or shahadatain, and still classify them as kafir and najis? Yes, we have some groups, and they basically are three. Number one, even if they say the shahadatain, they are still considered in Shia fiqh to be kafir and najis. And who is in number one there? Ghali. And who is a Ghali? A Ghali is a person who exaggerates the position of the Prophet and the Imams, bringing it to the level of divinity. In Shia fiqh, a Ghali, even if he says, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Rasulullah, Aliyun Waliullah, he is considered to be kafir and najis. This is one extreme. The second group is known as Nasibi. These are those who publicly or openly express hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt. This is the other extreme. The Ghali is the one who elevates the Ahlul Bayt to the position which is even beyond their rightful position. Nasibi is someone who expresses bughz, hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt. And the Nasibi is also considered in the Shia fiqh. Even if they say La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, we will still consider them to be kafir and najis. And the third is Khariji. like Ibn Muljim. But even among Khawarij, who exist now, there is a small group now. People like Ayatollah Sistani says, you cannot consider all Khawarij to be kafir and najis unless they openly express hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt. The example would be of, those of you who are from Zanzibar, the sultans of Zanzibar. They were all Ibadi. Ibadi is a subsect of the Kharijis. Although they were Khariji technically, but they did not express hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt. They allowed the Shias in Zanzibar under their rule to do Azadari, to do the procession even of Ashura. Not only that, actually some of the wives of the sultans used to send their own nazar on the day of the 7th or the 8th or the day of Ashura. And so we have to keep this in mind, that we are talking about open expression of hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt. This makes the Nasibi and the Khariji as a najis and kafir. And so this is where I'm leading to the question now. And this is where I believe there is a lot of confusion, unfortunately. Among the Shias, the way we see the expressions, individually or online, mashallah, this internet has become a bala. Anyone thinks of anything, they start writing about it. And sometimes, our mazhab ends up being ridiculed or targeted because of ignorant and irresponsible statement of some of those who say we are Shia. And the question is, are all Sunnis Nasibis? Unfortunately, there is a lot of ignorance among our own people. No. Not all Sunnis are Nasibis. The vast majority of Sunnis respect the Ahlul Bayt. They do not believe in the imamat of the Ahlul Bayt. They do not believe them to be the khulafa of Rasulullah, but they still respect them. Especially if you look at the Sufi groups among the Sunnis, they not only respect the Ahlul Bayt, they go to the extent of bringing them on the same level as the Khulafa. What they do is basically they say, well, the Khilafat is of two types. There is a political Khilafat of Rasulullah, and then there is a spiritual Khilafat of Rasulullah. And I've heard one of them on his YouTube speech, he says, I believe, and these are his words, that Abu Bakr was Khalifa bila fasl, and even Ali was Khalifa bila fasl. And then he explains, he says, on a political level, we take Abu Bakr as the first successor of the Prophet. But on a spiritual level, when it comes to the spiritual, chain of masters and disciples, we consider Ali to be the immediate successor in the line of spirituality from Rasulullah. So do not have this idea in the mind that every Sunni hates the Ahlul Bayt. It's not true. Whoever says to you, either he is misguided or ignorant. If you look at the history of Islam, history of the Muslims, even now, in spite of all the problems in Pakistan, for example, I'm amazed when I look at some of the things being produced by the Sufis. Manaqib. Manaqib means the fazail of the Ahlul Bayt. Look at the list of the books which has the title of Manaqib, fazail of the Ahlul Bayt, written in these centuries. You will see majority of them have been authored by Sunni scholars. The whole system of what is known as Manqibat Khani in Urdu, we call it, to recite poetry in the praise of the Ahlul Bayt. The Sufis especially, and many, Sunnis who are not of the Wahhabi line, they still do that. And so we have to understand very clearly there is a difference between Nasibi and a Sunni. Not all the Sunnis are Nasibi. Nasibi is somebody who openly expresses hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. Salawat alayhi. The fatwa of the Maraja on this issue. Ayatollah Sistani, has many projects going on, especially even in Iran. Many of these very resourceful websites, especially in Arabic language, and many of these electronic, resources which are produced in Qom are patronized and supported by Ayatollah Sistani. There is a website known as Markaz Abhas al-Aqaidiyya. This is a website dealing with the Aqidah of the Shias. They have all the kinds of books written by the Shia scholars on the issue of Aqidah. Of course, it's all in Arabic. They have all the books written by the new Shia convert scholars who have written books about why they became Shia. They also have a very, very good question-answer section where people, send them questions about the Aqidah and they respond to it. In one of those write-ups in that website 2 years ago, one of the ulama had responded to a question where he had implied that anyone who does not believe in the imamat of the Ahlul Bayt is a kafir. And coming from that website which says at the top, under the patronage of the Grand Ayatollah Syed Ali al-Husseini al-Sistani, this became an issue for our Sistani's people. Some people sent a question to Najaf about this issue. Is this your opinion? And in response to this, and this is in the month of Ramadan, year 1431, just 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago. In response, the office of Ayatollah Sistani in Najaf, and I will read the whole thing, it's worth reading it. The people there in the office of Najaf responded by saying, the Honorable Syed Sistani has stated in his books of Fatawa, especially referring to Minhaj al-Salihin, they give the volume number and the page number. They say that Syed Sistani has stated in his book of fatwas that the kafir is somebody who has these three things. One of the three. Either he is a person who does not profess any religion, an atheist. We will say an atheist is a kafir. Or somebody who professes a religion other than Islam. So they also are classified as kafir. And number three, somebody who professes Islam but denies something which is unanimously known to be from the Islamic tenets and which was brought by the Prophet. For example, wujub of Hajj. If somebody says, yes, I believe in Quran, I believe in Rasulullah, I'm a Muslim, but I don't believe Hajj is wajib. But this is zaruriyat of deen. All Muslims across the board believe that Hajj is wajib if you have the capability. And so if somebody denies, then there is a condition. The condition is that somebody denies such a thing where he realizes his denial or rejection of that, act will end up accusing the Prophet of lying about what Allah has revealed to him. This will be the implication of his statement. Then that person also will be considered as a kafir. So if he realizes what he is saying and his statement, what are the implications of that, then he is a kafir. So these are the three criteria of kufr. And then the next sentence, paragraph. وَنَظَرًا إِلَىٰ أَنَّ أُمُومَ إِخْوَانِنَا مِنْ أَهْلِ السُنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ الذين ينكرون إمامة الأئمة الاثنى عشر عليهم السلام يعتقدون بأن الإمامة ليست مما جاء به النبي لا يكون إنكارهم لها مضرا بإسلامهم. In considering the fact that majority of our brethren from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah who deny the imamat of the 12 imams, and they believe that imamat is not which is not something which has been brought by the Prophet, their denial does not harm their Islam. They are not mu'min, but their Islam is still intact. And this is according to the views of the Honorable Syed Sistani. It goes on. This is clear from his other fatawas also. When he talks about the obligation of giving funeral prayers or doing namaz janaza on a Muslim's corpse, even if that mayyit is from other sects of Islam. And then they give a second example, validity of a mu'mina's marriage to a person who belongs to other sects of Islam. And the third example, Muslims can inherit from one another. A son can inherit from the father, for example, even if they differ in their fiqhi mazhab and in their aqidah. So they are giving the example of his fatawa that, a person, even those who do not believe in the imamat of the Ahlul Bayt, they are still considered to be Muslims. And then he says, وبالجملة إن كل مطلع على فتاوى السماحة السيد السيستاني يعلم أنه يرى أن عامة أهل السنة والجماعة هم من المسلمين. In short, anyone who is familiar with the fatwas of the Honorable Syed knows that he considers the majority of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah as Muslims. And what are the implications of being a Muslim? Their lives and properties are sacrosanct, and all other laws regarding the Muslims would apply on them. As far as the website is concerned, Markaz al-Abhas al-Aqaidiyya, although it is under the patronage of the Honorable Syed, it consists of views of different scholars, and not everything in there necessarily represents the views of the Syed, except what is verified by his own seal or the seal of his office in Najaf. Salawat pande ek baar aur. The other marja who is in Qom, one of the grand maraja there, Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani, he was sent a question on this issue by the Shias who lived in an area where Sunnis are in majority. And this question is even more interesting than the previous one. Because the question they put is that we live in an area where Ahl Sunnah are in majority, and this Ahl Sunnah that we associate with, they consider us as kafir. And they say that Shias are kafir. In such a situation, can we retaliate in kind and consider them as kafir the way they consider us as kafir? So now we are, escalating these issues here. That they are calling us kafir, can we call them kafir? And this is what I said earlier. Do we go down to their level? Or do we maintain our moral and religious superiority? Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani, his credentials about Wiladat of Ahlul Bayt, I don't think anybody can doubt that. He's right there at the top. And look at the answer he gave. He says, anyone who gives testimony to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the risalat of the last prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is a Muslim. So anyone who says the Shahadatain is a Muslim. His life, his honor and property is as sacrosanct as the life and honor and property of a follower of the Ja'fari mazhab. Ihtaram of the life of a Muslim, honor of a Muslim, property of a Muslim, he says, is same as the ihtaram of the life and honor and property of a Shia Ja'fari. And then he says, وَوَظِيفَةِ شَرْعِيَ شُمَا. This is in Farsi now, that was in Arabic earlier. وَوَظِيفَةِ شَرْعِيَ شُمَا آن است که با گوینده شهادتین هرچند شما را کافر بداند به حسن معاشرت رفتار کنید. Your religious duty towards anyone who says the shahadatain, even if he calls you a kafir, is to behave with them in good manners. And if they behave with you unjustly, you should not deviate from the rightful straight path and from justice. And he bases his fatwa on the ayat of Quran where he says, before the ayat, he says, he goes to the extent of saying, if someone from them becomes ill, go and visit them. If someone dies, participate in their janazah. If someone seeks help from them, from among them, they seek help from you, help them. Submit to the command of Allah. And this is where the ayat comes from Surah Ma'idah, ayat number 8, that are recited in the beginning of the khutbah, which says, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنْعَانَ قَوْمٍ عَنْ لَا تَعْدِلُوا. Let me read the whole ayat. This is an ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you who believe, كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ لِلَّهِ شُهَدَاءَ بِالْقِسْطِ. Be among those who uphold the justice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنْعَانَ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَنْ لَا تَعْدِلُوا. And do not let the hatred of a people incite you to abandon justice. Means the situation would be that maybe they are bad to you, they're calling you kafir, they are killing you. So of course you would have this shan'an, hatred and anger towards them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not let the hatred towards them in your heart stop you an la ta'dilu, stop you from doing justice. i'dalu, maintain justice. huwa aqrabu lit-taqwa. This is closer to the issue of taqwa. wattaqullaha, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. inna Allah khabirun bima ta'amalun. Allah is well aware of what you do. And so that is the basis of the fatwa of Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani. And then he even recites an ayat of Quran, وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ أَلْقَى إِلَيْكُمُ السَّلَامَ أَنْ لَسْتَ مُؤْمِنًا. You know, this is an ayat which came in a context where in the battlefield between Muslims and Kafir, you're about to overcome this Kafir and he, throws his sword down and says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadun Rasulullah. What do we do? Do you say he's a liar? I was about to, finish him off and he says the kalima now. As soon as he says the kalima, your hands are tied. لا تقولوا, the ayat of Quran says, when somebody submits, recites the shahadatain, even though the circumstances are very suspect, Quran says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not say that you are not a believer. You will have to accept His word. And so this is what we are told by the Quran and even the Maraji, who are basically those who explain the Quran and the Seerah and Sunnah of the Ma'asumeen to us in different changing circumstances of the time. Salawat alayhi. Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani, when he says, when they feel, they are not, when they become ill, go and visit them. When they die, participate in the janazah. When they seek help, help them. Where did he bring this from? This is where we come to the teachings and the seerah of our Imams. We have gathered here to celebrate the Wiladat of Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam. And these words in the fatwa of Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani actually has been taken from the hadith of the 11th Imam. Is teaching us that when we find ourselves in a situation of minority, where the majority is oppressing us, what do? Even then, we do not abandon justice and fairness in dealing with them. What they do is their problem. What we do are our issues. And this is where, the hadith that we have from the Imam on this issue, which is a long one, and I would like to, conclude the mahfil with that. But Imam says, and it seems this is a written document, because at the end he ends with the salam. Normally in the speech they wouldn't say that. Usikum. Addressing his own Shias, the 11th Imam says, I advise you. Then he says about 7 things. The first 3 things are related to us on a personal level. He says, my advice is number 1, bitaqwa Allah. Have the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Always have this consciousness of Allah's, displeasure. Don't make Him angry. Number 2, وَالْوَرَعْ فِي دِينِكُمْ. Be extra careful in the matters of your religion, which is very opposite of what we always want. We always look for the easiest of the fatwas. And here the Imam is saying, after taqwa, وَالْوَرَعْ فِي دِينِكُمْ. Be more careful and cautious in the matters of your religion. And number 3, وَالْاجْتِهَادْ لِلَّهِ. And struggle in fulfilling your duties for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then coming to the social issues, interacting with others. He says, وَالصِّدْقِ الْحَدِيثِ. I advise you to be truthful in your speech. وَعَدَاءِ الْأَمَانَةِ. And to fulfill the trust given to you. إِلَى مَنْ ائْتَمَنَكُمْ. Give the amanat back to the one who entrusted to you. Min birrin aw fajir. Doesn't matter that the other person was a good person or a sinful person. You have to be still righteous in your dealing with them. But طول السجود. Prolong your sajdas. And number 7, وحسن الجوار. And be a good neighbor. And then the Imam says, فَبِحَاذَا جَاءَ مُحَمَّدْ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ وَسَلَّمَ. The 11th Imam says that these are the teachings and the values with which the Prophet has come. And then talking about interaction with other Muslims who are not of the same mazhab as us. This is where he says, صَلُّ فِي عَشَائِرِهِمْ. Go and participate in their namaz. وَاشْحَدُ جَنَائِزَهُمْ. Participate in their funerals. عُودُوا مَرْضَاهُمْ. Go and visit those who are sick among them. وَعَدُّوا حُقُوقَهُمْ. And fulfill the huquq and the rights that they have on you. فَإِنَّ الرَّجُلْ مِنْكُمْ إِذَا وَرَعَ فِي دِينِهِ وَصَدَقَ فِي حَدِيثِهِ وَعَدَّ الْأَمَانَةَ وَحَسَّنَ خُلْقَهُ مَعَ النَّاسِ. The Imam says that when a person among you is careful in the matters of his religion, and he is truthful in his speech, and he fulfills the trust which has been given to him, and he improves his akhlaq with the people, قِيلَ هَذَا شِيعِيٌّ. Then people will say he is a Shia. This person with these qualities, he is a Shia. فَيَسُرُّنِ ذَلِكَ. When you are described as a Shia, a good person who is a Shia, Imam says, I become happy. Because you are affiliated to me. You are known as the Shia of the Ahlul Bayt علیہ الصلوۃ والسلام. صلوات پڑھنے ایک بار. امام کے اس ارشاد پہ ہم محفل کو ختم کرنا چاہ رہے ہیں کہ امام نے اپنے زمانے میں، آیت اللہ وحید خراسانی نے امام کی اسی حدیث کے کچھ الفاظ کو اپنے فتوے میں استعمال کیا ہے کہ جب دوسروں کے ساتھ ہمارے انٹریکشن کی بات ہوتی ہے، ہمیں یہ نہیں دیکھنا ہے کہ وہ کیا کر رہے ہیں. حضرت علی نے یہ نہیں کہا کہ ابن ملجم نے حملہ کیا ہے لہذا اسے بھوکا رکھا جائے. علی نے کیا کہا کہ جو دودھ کا پیالہ ہمیں ملا ہے پینے کے بعد کہہ دیتے جا کے اس کو بھی دو. نہیں اس لیے کہ وہ اچھا انسان ہے، وہ جہنمی ہے، لیکن اس کا جہنمی ہونا اس کا معاملہ ہے، علی کا اخلاق علی کا اخلاق. وہ سنی ہمارے ساتھ کیا کرتے ہیں، وہابی ہمیں کافر کہتے ہیں، یہ ان کا برا فعل ہے، وہ جہنم میں جائیں گے. ہمیں پلٹ کے انہیں کافر نہیں کہنا ہے، مگر یہ کہ ہمارے پاس ثبوت ہو ان کے بغض اہل بیت کے سلسلے میں. امام نے جو باتیں لکھی ہیں اس بیان میں، آخر میں یہ حدیث آگے بڑھتی ہے، اتقوا اللہ وکونوا زینا ولا تکونوا شینا. اللہ سے ڈرو اور باعث زینت بنو. کس کے لیے؟ امام کہتے ہیں اگر تم اچھا کرو گے تو ہمارے لیے باعث زینت ہوگی. ولا تکونوا شینا، تم باعث ذلت مت ہو. اس لیے کہ جب تم برا کام کرو گے اس کا ریفلیکشن ہم پر جاتا ہے کہ یہ ہمارے شیعہ ہیں، یہ ہمارے فالوور ہیں. جروا الینا کل مودت، ہر محبت کو ہماری طرف کھینچو. وہ سنی جو ہمارے ائمہ کو امام نہیں مانتا ہے پھر بھی قصیدہ لکھتا ہے، قصیدہ پڑھتا ہے، منقبت خوانی کرتا ہے، اس کو اپنے اخلاق سے، اپنے اچھی باتوں سے امام کی طرف کھینچو. اس کو گالی دے کے اور دور مت کرو. یہ ہے جو امام فرما رہے ہیں، جروا الینا کل مودت. جہاں جہاں تمہیں محبت نظر آئے، لوگ ہماری طرف ہیں تو انہیں کھینچ کو ہماری طرف لے آؤ. وادعوا عنا کل قبیح، اور ہر برائی کو ہم سے دور رکھو. فإنه ما قیل فینا من حسن فنحن اہلہ. جو کچھ اچھی بات ہمارے بارے میں کہا جائے یقیناً ہم اس کے مستحق ہیں اور حقدار ہیں، اور جو کچھ غلط بات ہمارے بارے میں کی جائے اس کے مستحق ہم نہیں. پھر فرماتے ہیں لنا حق فی کتاب اللہ، اللہ کی کتاب میں ہمارا حق لکھا ہے. آئے مودت موجود ہے، ہم سے محبت کرنا یہ حق ہے جو اللہ نے تم پر واجب قرار دیا ہے. وقرابۃ من رسول اللہ، اور ہم رسول کے قرابت دار ہیں، اس قرابت کا احترام کرو. وتطہیر من اللہ، اور اللہ نے ہمیں پاک و پاکیزہ بنایا ہے. آئے تطہیر کی طرف اشارہ ہے. لا يدعیہ احد غیرنا الا کذاب. کوئی اور اگر دعویٰ کرے کہ یہ آیت ان کے بارے میں ہے وہ جھوٹا ہے، اس لیے کہ آیت تطہیر نازل ہوئی ہے صرف فاطمہ اور فاطمہ کے گھر والوں کے لیے ہے. صلوات پڑھنے ایک بار. اکثروا ذکر اللہ، اللہ کے ذکر کو بڑھاؤ. وہ ذکر الموت، موت کو یاد کرو. وہ تلاوت القرآن، قرآن کی تلاوت میں زیادہ وقت گزارو. والصلاۃ علی النبی، اور رسول پر صلوات پڑھو، اس لیے کہ رسول پر صلوات 10 حسنات، 10 نیکیوں کو ایک طرف رکھیں اور رسول پر صلوات کو ایک طرف رکھیں. صلوات پڑھنے پر. آخر میں امام لکھتے ہیں احفظوا ما وصیتکم بہ، جو وصیت ہم نے تمہارے لیے کی ہے اس کو یاد رکھو. واستوعدکم اللہ، اور ہم نے تمہیں اللہ کے حوالے کیا ہے. واقرأ علیکم السلام، اور ہم تم پر سلام بھیجتے ہیں. امام نے لکھا تھا 12 صدی پہلے، لیکن یہ کلام ہم تک ابھی بھی آ رہا ہے. امام ابھی بھی ہم پر سلام بھیج رہے ہیں. صلوات پڑھنے ایک بار. تو اہل بیت کے کردار کو دیکھنا ہے ہمیں، اپنے پسند اور ناپسند کو نہیں دیکھنا ہے۔ ہمارے بزرگ علماء ہمارے لیے ہادی اور رہنما ہیں، دوسروں کے باتوں میں پڑھنے کی ضرورت نہیں ہے۔ عقیدہ سیکھنا ہے تو ہمارے بزرگ علماء سے سیکھیں، فقہ سیکھنا ہے تو بزرگ علماء سے سیکھیں، وہی ہمارے لیے نجات کا راستہ ہے، اور اس کے علاوہ کوئی اور چارہ نہیں ہے۔ خداوند اسقری لباس قبول فرمائے، ہمارے گناہوں کو بخش دے، ہماری توفیقات میں اضافہ فرمائے، امام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرمائے۔ ربنا تقبل منا انک انت السمیع العلیم۔ صلوات۔